Welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. My name is Audrey Monkey, and I am your host. I have been a summer camp director for more than 30 years and have worked with thousands of campers, young adult counselors, and parents. I'm also raising 5 kids of my own who are currently ages 14 to 24. So about half of them are already young adults. Here on the podcast and on my website, I share stories, tips, and ideas to help parents and anyone else who works with young people raise competent, kind, self-reliant, optimistic kids. Summer camp, parenting, and happiness are my main gigs here at Sunshine Parenting. So if you're interested in any or all of those topics, you've come to the right place. Welcome. In this episode, which is episode 37, my friend Sara Kuljis and I are talking about preparing your child for sleepaway summer camp. If you are not sending a child to camp, you might want to skip this episode. But if you are sending a child to camp or thinking about sending your child to camp in the future, I think you'll enjoy our conversation and tips. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. Sara and I are excited to talk with you today about just preparing for your child's camp experience this summer. So to start with, we're just going to introduce ourselves. I just questioned Sara and found out that together we have 6 decades of camp experience. So we've spent a lot of time at camp and worked with thousands of kids over the years, and especially the first year of camp is pretty challenging and can be really anxiety producing for both parents and kids. So we're hoping to alleviate some of those worries for you by just kind of talking you through some things that might help you be better prepared for this summer. So my name is Audrey Monkey, and I have been a camp director for now 33 years.
And I am Sara Kuljis. I've been a camp owner and director for a little over 20 years, but then have another decade of experience working at a variety of camps in my younger days.
And both of us are very passionate about not only our camps, but also educating parents on all things related to just raising thriving kids. We both do speaking engagements with parent groups, and so we just decided this would be a great way to share some of our combined wisdom with those of you who are getting your child ready for summer camp. So Sara, why don't you start with our first topic?
Sure. Well, given that it's almost the end of April, this really is a time where parents can be setting their children up for success at summer camp by making sure all those silly forms are filled out for their various programs. Many camps are all offering forms online, although there are some camps that still need hard copies of forms. But the camps really need this information. So if it's a health history, please take time and be thoughtful about that. The camp infirmary will be able to serve your child better if that form is filled out well. You may need to, if you haven't already, schedule the physician's exam so that you have that form filled out in plenty of time and it's not a rush at the last minute. Many programs have what would be like a personality profile or kind of a special form for the counselor to study before the camper comes. And that is a counselor's best friend. My staff, and Audrey, I'm sure the same with you, my staff is so grateful when a parent thoughtfully fills that out and helps them not start behind the 8 ball. They really are starting knowing more about the child and how to work with that child, what their fears and expectations are. That's really precious. You may have forms for transportation, for maybe making sure you've read a behavior policy, so we know how that we're all going to behave well at camp and we're all committing to that. I will say, if there's a place for a camper to sign that they know about a certain behavior policy, please, even in your haste, don't skip over that step of having a great conversation with your camper about what acceptable behavior is at camp. We have a mail and care package policy. This year, we're for the first time not doing care packages. I know, Audrey, you guys were wise and did that long ago, but we need to make sure that families know that we're accepting cards and letters and emails, and that'll be it. So do take time on those forms, and there are a lot, but it's for a good purpose. If you have any questions about your forms or they're not submitting, just call the camp office. Someone there will be happy to help you out. Do you have anything to add to that?
I guess the only other thing, I think you and I both have also sort of a parent handbook. And I think depending on when those got mailed out, whether it's via email or actual mail, I think it is important to just flip that thing open and just take a little look at it, browse through it, just see what's in there. Oftentimes it will have information about transportation or different forms that need to be filled out. And that's another important document, I think, to keep handy, especially as camp is approaching, because it will help remind you about things that you'll need to know before camp. So I guess, as camp directors, I think we would always plead that, especially this time of year, you would read the emails that we send. Please, and open envelopes if there's anything that comes in the mail, because especially if it comes in the mail, but also all the emails now, it is important information, and you do want to feel more comfortable and just know what's going on. And you don't want to be looking at these things the day before camp and realizing that you haven't done something that needed to be done.
Right.
So I think that's really important. Yeah. Other than that, I think you hit all the key points about. It might feel like a hassle, but I think most camps have tried to make it a pretty streamlined process, and they are important. And if we don't have them ahead of time, the staff who need them don't get them. So if you're writing about an allergy, a food allergy, it's not going to get to the kitchen staff if you try to send it with your child on the bus ride to camp. Right. All of the documentation about the session has been provided to our staff ahead of time so that they can prepare. So that's the other reason. If something sent with your child is too late, we need it before.
Good.
So another thing that comes up a lot, we have a lot of campers who come to camp on different medications, whether it's over-the-counter things like allergy medications or prescription medications. And one thing that I've learned over my many years at camp is that it's never a good idea for a child's dosage or a new medication, any changes right before camp. So if your child is taking a certain medication, right before camp is not a time to reevaluate or switch to a different medication or change the dosage, because that could just exacerbate, especially if it's a medication for some kind of anxiety or anything like that. Camp could be something that produces more anxiety. So, maybe lowering a dose right before camp would not be recommended. That's just one example. But a lot of times people think, especially for kids with ADHD, that they don't need their medicine during the summer. And that may be the case at home when, there's not a lot going on, or, you want to kind of increase their appetite, or there might be good reasons for that. But at camp, they're actually, if it's something that helps the child maintain attention, it's important at camp too, because of, there's examples of activities and things we do, don't you think, Sarah, that
absolutely
that require
really understanding, safety guidelines and things like that. And I think too, perhaps what I've seen most is their social skills, the ability to make friends can be negatively impacted if we go off some of those medications. And so I would be very thoughtful about taking a medication vacation when they really need to lean into their social skills, maybe in a whole new way.
Yes, I agree. And so I think that is the key thing, that if it's helping them with their attention to social issues, that's really important at camp. So that's just one of many medications. I will say, and I don't know if Sarah, if you'll agree with this or not, but if your child takes just kind of random vitamins or kind of, herbal supplements and whatnot, I would suggest stopping them during camp unless they are critical to their health, only because while it's not a problem to stop by and get your medication, a kid, to stop by to get their vitamin C every single day just seems like, do you really need to do that for the couple weeks they're at camp? What do you think about that, like vitamins and things?
For my own kids, I often will, or often have, if I know it's a rigorous program, I'll let them skip those for a time, especially if it's maybe herbal stuff. I might wait as they've gotten older and can, kind of handle remembering to go by the infirmary, then I'll keep them on their Juice Plus. But it's not a bad idea to curtail that. I think perhaps though more important than that is remembering parents to please send all medication in its original container. I so appreciate the parents who have already dosed out 2 weeks of medication in those special little, weekly container packs, but our nurses can't distribute them by law because they aren't in the original container with the original dosage. So that is just really key. Please don't be frustrated at the camp infirmary. If they call and say, we can't distribute these, please send a new prescription or please send them up in the bottle again. So that's probably my biggest push with regard to meds.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And there are a new, some pharmacies actually do those little packets, the bubble packs.
The daily packs. Those are awesome.
Yes. And I think I would highly recommend if you have that, where the bubble packs from the pharmacy sealed up that say, your child's name, morning, noon, dinner, whatever. That's awesome. So nurses would appreciate that. You already dosed out. But the next best is and like you said, you can't say a different dosage on your medication or health form than what's on the bottle. The nurses are required to give what's on the bottle. So great reminder about medications. Okay, so the next topic, and we can kind of go back and forth on this, but you already kind of covered it, but when you were talking about the kind of information that you share about your camper, but why don't you just talk about sort of when parents are hesitant about sharing about maybe something like bedwetting or sort of embarrassing things, what are your thoughts on that, and what advice do you have for parents?
Well, we hope and we ask our parents to really trust us with the information that will help their child be successful. There are very few things that surprise us. We've been in camping a long time, you too, Audrey. And if we know a child is struggling with bedwetting, we have the sneakiest strategy to cover that child. We will make it happen. But if it's a surprise to us, then that child may get found out or embarrassed or be really under stress and anxiety over that. So please let us know. If there's any special issue, it might be a sadness that they're carrying about a recent death in the family. It might be some anxiety they're carrying. It might be an unusual experience or fear or something that happened at another camp at another time. The more information you can share with your camp, the more prepared they can be. And I sometimes a parent will call and we'll talk through it and I'll explain how we would respond. I take full notes of that and tuck it in the camper's file. But I also encourage a parent, say a camper's had a really rough year at school with some learning issues or bullying issues, and they're coming carrying a weight on their shoulders. So I just ask send an email, send a long and detailed email. The counselor will be thrilled. And we don't say no to a camper for that. The more we know, the more we can partner. How are there other ways that you partner, Audrey?
Oh, I love that. And as you were saying, I think any camp director, I know we both appreciate calls or emails if there's something new going on, whether it's a new camper or a returning camper. Parents, you are the experts on your child and you know best what's going on with them and what will be most helpful. And we want to partner with you, like Sara said. So if there's something that is going on with your child, we want you to feel comfortable sharing it with us. And really, if you're not comfortable sharing it with your camp, then it's probably not a good idea to go to camp because that summer or that program, because your child will be there, on their own with these adults who are there to support them. But if the adults don't have the correct knowledge, they could say or do something that's, the exact opposite of what the child needs, depending on their circumstances. I often have conversations with parents about, how much they want their child encouraged to try new things versus not. And that's something that we want to know what your goals are. We're going to defer to your child when they're at camp. But if you know, for example, that your child, it's going to be hard for them to try something, but you'd really like them to be really strongly encouraged because they tend to not do new things, then we can tell our counselors, this parent really wants gentle encouragement of their child. If your child's gone through a really stressful year and you really just want them to just chill, relax, have zero stress, great. We can tell our counselors that. No pushing, just let them be, let them enjoy being at camp. We need to know what page they're on, what page you're on, so that we can best deliver the experience that you want from camp.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And I think I would add to parents, if you could encourage your camper to, and you might even role play this, encourage your camper to really confide in their counselor, because something may arise at camp that you couldn't have prepared for. And it's always unfortunate when a camper holds something for longer than they need to, instead of saying, hey, counselor, would you help me resolve this? Would you help me with this? For young ladies and adolescents, it may be that, I started my first time of the month and I'm not sure what to do. A counselor is trained and ready to respond. But, a lot of our kiddos, they want to be brave and strong, or they want to save that for when they go home. I would urge you to help them come trusting in their counselor and choose to confide. And again, if you want to role play or even practice those words, how would I say, I'm afraid of this, or I'm missing this, or I'm hungry because I haven't had enough familiar food. Can you help me figure out what to choose at mealtime? If they'll trust their counselor, again, wow, they are set up to have a wonderful time.
Oh my gosh. And that, of course, just reminded me of Julie Lithcott-Haim's book.
Yes.
How to Raise an Adult, where she talks about college students who are not able to talk to the adults at college who are there to support them and advise them and help them. And they want their parents to interface with those people. So I also think in the bigger picture, teaching our kids to go to other trusted adults is a really important skill they need for life. And camp is pretty much the only place that they're going to get to practice that, because at our camps and most camps, they don't have their phones. So their default going to call or text you, they can't do, but that's actually a really positive thing for their growth. Because if they do need something, and I loved your example, I couldn't really find anything that I could eat today or something like that. Writing a letter home to their parents that gets there 3 days later, and then the parent calling us, and then us following up and making sure, that's just, again, that won't get your child the help sooner.
Right.
And so that skill, I love that. I love that idea of role playing with them. I mean, even with a girl getting her period, a lot of times moms will send, or dads could pack it too, send, like hygiene supplies in case their child gets their first period at camp. And, but they probably, not always would think, well, what are you going to say if it happens? What could you say? And I think that, all your kids will find once they get to camp that their counselors are so warm and understanding. And the counselors, because they're really, they're just a few years older than the kids, sometimes it's 10 years, but sometimes it's 5. And they really can relate well to the kids. Yeah. They've gone through many of the same things not that long before. So they can be such great advocates for the kids, but the kids do need to feel comfortable opening up. So I love that part. And so it's kind of like we just talked about, the parents opening up to us and letting us in so that they trust us, that we're going to provide the experience and do what we can. And then the kids learning to open up too. So we just kind of covered both of those things. Okay, let's talk about packing, because that's another thing that's going to be happening before your child goes to camp. So what are some of your biggest packing tips, Sarah?
Well, I think you and I share this one. Is that please have your child participate in the packing process. My kids laugh because I call packing a life skill, and we've made a big to-do about it. So camps will provide a what to bring list. That's your guide. Have it printed off and make sure your child has a copy of it, and then pack together. When my kids were little, and I mean elementary, we really did pack together. Okay, it says 8 shirts. What shirts would you like to take? And allowing them to pick them out. When they help, they have more ownership of what they're taking. They remember and know what they're taking. And at least in my experience, they come home with more of the things that they took. As my kids got older, I would say, hey, you pull everything you want to take, set it on your bed, and let me look over it. So they had more independence. And then by the time they got to 8th grade and older, I'm just letting them pack. And if they forgot something, they won't forget it the next time. They help label. We use a Sharpie, but many families like labels that you iron on, and those are awesome. But the more the child knows what they took and where it is in their bag, the more care they'll take of it, the more confidence they'll feel. I spoke with a young lady. She was about 10 a couple years ago at camp, and she pulled me aside. She'd never met me before. I was really touched by her courage. And my camp name is Salsa. And she said, Salsa, I don't think I brought underwear to camp. And she was really, really stressed about this. And so we went through her bag, and there it was in a side pocket. But she didn't know. And she had just held that fear for 6 hours on the bus and 2 hours until dinner. And oh, the relief. She got choked up. She was so relieved. And I thought, oh, poor thing. That just isn't something we needed to be worried about. So those would be my big packing highlights. It takes a little more time, but in the long run, I actually don't know what my child packed for college. He seemed fine. There were 2 boxes and a suitcase or a duffel, and he never asked me to send anything out. But he has been practicing packing since he was 8.
Right. It really is an important life skill. I mean, don't you even think? I mean, even just packing just what you need and not too much, I think is an adult. Often we're not that great at packing. No, I agree with you 100%. I want the kids involved through the whole process because it is stressful to not know where things are. We've had campers in the past who thought they didn't have a towel or a bathing suit or a sleeping bag or, and it's because it's been tucked somewhere very well. And, you can kind of tell when a parent's done the packing because everything's just perfect,
Right.
Really neat and tidy. And so it doesn't have to be super tidy or neat, but just have all the things there and the kid knows where they are. But I'm with you. My kids, my youngest is 14 now, but I haven't even looked at their packing for a camp or a trip in many years.
Yes.
And the funny thing in my house is I started doing packing lists for any trip we took.
Oh, good idea.
But even now, my 17-year-old will be like, where's my packing list? I'm like, I didn't make a packing list. We've been here before, but it's just funny that we're so packing list people because everyone's just used to taking their list and packing. Okay, let me just look over this list. So yeah, you already talked about printing out and using the packing list that your camp provides. Also looking at any of the items that aren't allowed, that's kind of important, is to make sure that you're not packing anything that's not supposed to be at camp.
Yes.
And that varies from camp to camp, so you want to look at that. We already talked about having your camper do most of the work. Labeling, not just clothing, but also you'll want to label even things like your flashlight or hats, all the miscellaneous stuff. Those are often the things that get left around camp. So you really want to make sure that you have everything labeled, even funny stuff. If you don't want to lose a toothbrush, even your toothbrush.
Absolutely. My kids found that if labeling toiletries was a big deal because they would forget and leave their shampoo in the bathroom and then it would go to someone else's cabin. So even that. And then also remembering to label the outside of the sleeping bag, the outside of the gear bag or the duffel bag because it feels invasive to have to open it up and look at a shirt tag to see whose it is.
Oh my gosh. And also, I even forget my own sleeping bag, what color it is, but kids often don't remember what color their bag was. Like when we're looking for a bag, we're unloading things and getting them all put away and they're like, I can't find my bag. We're like, well, what did it look like? And they're just like, So if it has,
I don't know.
Yeah. So, and I think most camps provide some kind of luggage tags, either when you're checking in or mailed ahead of time. Be sure to use those. And if not, make sure you have a very visible tag with your child's name on the outside of every piece of luggage. That's really good. I also one of the things that, and Sarah and I were debating this a little before, I have been a proponent of rolling outfits like a burrito, but having the kid do them or using large Ziploc storage bags to pack like a week's worth of outfits. That's for younger kids who just want to be able to, when they're going to their shower, just pull out a burrito that has shorts, t-shirt, underwear, socks, clean, ready to go. Sometimes younger kids, especially boys, just don't really want to go too deep into their luggage and might just wear the same t-shirt for a week. And they might still do that, but if you make it really easy for them to find things, that will be helpful. As they get older, they can manage however works for them best. The other thing that I think would be fun is, what about extras? What are some fun little things that might not be on the camp's packing list, that maybe just like comfort things from home that you recommend people pack?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first I would, you can tuck a call into the camp office and ask the camp, are there any days, that special traditions? Is there anything that's not on the what to bring list that would help my child really feel like they're in the know? Or if that child has a friend who's gone before, hey, is there anything? Oh yeah, slippers, because at night it's cold on the bathroom floors. There might be some little things like that. However, we always encourage families, if you know that there's a theme day, send a little token, a hat or funny socks. Kids might want to take, if they have, say, 8 kids in their cabin, they might want to take 8 little things to share, small things, bandanas, all the same color, to share with their cabin mates. We had one camper who for 6 years in a row brought 2. You would have a tutu for everyone. So things to share is sweet. At our camp, there is sort of a tradition of Mahalo Mondays, and a number of campers and staff wear Hawaiian shirts, really tacky, ugly ones. And then onesie Wednesdays are also big, to wear onesie pajamas until it's just too hot on Wednesdays. Look and see if there is a banquet or a dance at your camp, because maybe we have a chapel on Sundays and we have a banquet on the last day. And so bringing one button down shirt and maybe some nice khaki shorts for the boys or a sundress for the girls will help them feel prepared and in. I would urge, though, don't take fancy and nice stuff to camp. That's not what it's for. Please don't go out and buy all new things. Camp is a place where hopefully it's a level playing field. And labels and fancy clothes just don't live at camp. So hopefully you have in your drawers already and hanging up already what you need.
Oh, I agree with that. Also, pants that are too short are actually perfect for camp. Like the jeans that are from kind of last year, they're not going to be at school next year.
They're perfect.
They're perfect for like rock climbing and any other kind of, hiking or horseback riding or things that require long pants, because, often they get holes in their clothes at camp and they get kind of wrecked. So it's a great way to dispose of like the gross socks from last year's school and t-shirts that have a stain on them. I mean, really, and also camp laundry. I think at most places, we're doing a ton of laundry. It's a lot of kids together, and it's not going to be dry cleaned or specially processed. So if it's that really special shirt that has all kinds of special requirements, it probably will not make it through camp. So definitely pack with the kind of the old stuff. So other things that we just sort of talk about is, it's funny, even older kids often will bring like a stuffed animal or a blanket. And at camp, that's just kind of a thing. Returning kids who are 14 sometimes show up with like their, whatever, and they introduce it to their cabin. And it's even the staff often will have things. And I think that's just a nice thing. If there's a comfort item that your child uses at home, I'd say bring it along, a special blanket or something. Also, I always say to bring a little photo album, like just those, like one of those ones with printed out 4x6 of, the dog or your family or just anything. So, they'll be making these new friends, and it's so fun to be able to show your counselor, oh, this is what, this is my sister, or I don't know. So I think that's a fun idea. If you have time to just print out just like 10 pictures or 5 pictures that just the camper can share with other people. I think that's really nice. And then the other thing, often this is on the packing list, but letter writing material, like maybe sit down with your camper and show them how to address an envelope and actually address one. Like if you want them to write a letter to grandma, you could just address an envelope to grandma or, to you or to whoever. Like if there's 3 people, maybe just address 3 envelopes. You don't want to overwhelm them with some huge stack, but put a stamp on it. Make it so that all they need to do is just write the note and stick it in there.
That's a great idea. Also, I would say if your child is shy or embarrassed to bring like a comfort item, and that's an issue for them, I'd encourage you to let the camp know. I have many times, I bet you have too, Audrey, many times, if a camper is a little shy to bring a stuffed animal, we'll make sure that counselor also has a stuffed animal. And now I'm like the cool grown up in my cabin, and we all have a stuffed animal. So if we can match that child's need from the counselor side of things, it just makes them feel a part and not different and not embarrassed. And that is a really easy thing to do.
Oh my gosh, love that. What a great idea. Well, yeah, I agree. And I'm sure every camp would be happy to make sure that other kids and other counselors have the same thing. Also, I really encourage if your camper is at all likes writing in a journal or some kind of little scrapbook or just something to keep track of the activities they've done. If they're a kid who likes a little bit of quiet time and doing that, I think a journal is really a fun thing. And then also books, because they're, disengaged from technology, kids read more at camp. Mm-hmm. So we really encourage real books. At our camp, we don't allow e-readers just because it opens up a whole can of worms of electronics and charging, which we don't have access to. And we even have free reading time now, because some kids want to, instead of doing an active activity for that hour and a half, just read. And we have these little chairs and kids sit around reading, and it just warms my heart, because I think kids are getting away from reading because everything's so fast paced. So a good book, if you have one, maybe one of your favorite books from when you were their age that they haven't read, or maybe just a favorite book of theirs that's a comforting book to have.
Great idea. It's fun to see kids swap books too. If they read it the first week, then they swap it with a cabin mate. And that's just a delight that they have found a new story that they love.
Awesome. And many camps have a little library or bookshelf somewhere where kids can find books. So that's a great thing. I think that's most. Do you have anything else on packing that we missed?
No, I think that's about it. That's good.
Okay. So I think our last thing before we sign off on this whole getting your child ready for camp was about a week before camp, we both recommend that you send a letter to your child, a real letter. Oftentimes you'll be able to email your camper while they're at camp, and those emails are generally printed out on paper and delivered with the mail. And of course, kids love getting anything, in their mail, whether it's an email or a regular letter. But there is something really special about real handwritten postcards and letters, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. In our family, we kind of have this thing. I start in the spring collecting really funny greeting cards, like quirky, just perfect for my kid greeting cards, and send a couple of those during a session, in addition to some emails. And they always bring them home. They always hang on to them. And I don't mean that we're sending 100 cards in a week, but just a few. And reminds them you're thinking of them, makes them laugh, makes them share that inside joke with their cabin mates. And there's something about snail mail. It is becoming more and more, I think, significant because it's happening less and less.
And the handwritten part. And I will just say, you will love getting those letters back or postcards back from your child. And it's just save those because they are just classic and so fun. I've kept every single card and letter because really camp is the only time my kids have written letters to me. Usually, otherwise it's emails and texts. So love that. On another note with mail, I just thought about is give their camp address to their friends, grandparents, other people, because it is fun to get mail at camp. And like Sara said, they don't need to get 100 letters, but it's nice to get a letter, every day, or a letter or an email or something, just something with some news. So that I would recommend. And then also make sure you let those people know any mail policies, because sometimes people automatically think, oh, I'm going to mail them a box with some cookies and a note. And most camps for health department and allergy and many other reasons don't allow food. And then camps like Sara's and mine actually don't even allow packages. So that's really sad when grandma went to all this effort to do this. So be sure to let all those people know both the address and any rules that apply.
Right. Absolutely. And if you find that your camper forgot something and you do need to mail it, again, simply call the office. They probably have a certain person that is to whom it should be addressed, and that person will get the shoes to the child or the meds to the infirmary. So again, it's all about communication with the camp office.
Absolutely. Okay, so it looks like we covered most of our topics. If we think of anything more, I'll add them in the notes so that people can read through that. I do recommend, we have found these new clothing labels that you don't even have to iron. They just stick in like a sticker.
Oh, yes.
Kids can, I've had my kids iron in things before too, and that's a good thing to learn how to do, but these stick-in ones are really kind of easy. So I'll put a link to where we found those ones that just stick in. And my last thing that I just had on here, I have two more things. One is planning for some downtime.
Yes. Don't come too tired.
Yeah. So talk about that. I know we talk a lot about family kind of pace and all that kind of thing, but just when you're thinking about your child going to camp and coming home from camp, what are some recommendations you have for families?
I just, imagine yourself getting ready for a big adventure. You want to feel prepared, you want to feel calm, and you want to be rested going into it. Well, the same for a child. Sometimes our families might take their child out to a late big concert the night before for their going away to camp party. But then the child comes very tired to camp, and that's a rough first day when they actually want to need a nap, but they're trying to meet a whole bunch of new people. So as much rest as you can have coming into the day, healthy food, plenty of water, keeping their immune system all boosted up. And then the coming home piece, and we can even talk about that at a later date, but the coming home piece, they are going to need time to think through their big adventure and process. Some of them will tell you all about it, and some of them will hold it a while and hold it precious and then let you know in a few days about their time. So do give that downtime before and after that big experience, just the way we as adults need that when we've had a big adventure ourselves. Do you have any extra pointers about that, Audrey?
I just think that's just my point too. I think, no sleepover with your friends because you're not going to see them for a couple weeks. Just don't do that the night before. I feel like sometimes people are trying to squeeze camp in between many things. And, I just always say, just make time for it. If it's a priority and it's something that you want your child to do, then make sure there's margin, that it's not, this thing and then that. And, it's not the family reunion camp and then the family vacation. And just everybody needs to just kind of chill a little bit and sort of process things. And so rather than rushing from one thing to the next, I think it's such a great experience that you want them to really be both ready for it and also have some time to sort of regroup and think about it afterwards.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I had on here was just most camps now have some kind of online services. So whether it's the way you send emails or look at some photos. They also probably either do their news either on their website, or some camps even have apps now with notifications. Wow. So whatever your system, the camp systems are, I really think it's a good idea to just at least a week before camp, familiarize yourself where's a bookmark them on your computer or on your phone, just so that on the first day, when your camper leaves, you're not searching around for the information of, wait, how do I send the email? I think that just will make you feel more calm as you start camp as a parent.
Right. You may need to also opt in, say, for texts. The bus has arrived. You can't get that text if you don't opt in. Right. So make sure if there is an opt-in feature that you've tackled that in advance.
That is awesome. I think we covered a lot here, Sarah. And I think hopefully if parents watch this, they will feel like they are ready to get their child ready for camp. We're going to have actually 2 other, if not more, episodes. And the next one's going to be about preventing homesickness and kind of how camps handle homesickness and how to respond if your child's homesickness. And then the one you just reminded me that we need to do is the sort of after camp, how do you process the experience? How do you understand better what your child has gone through, and how can you support that growth that they've had? How can you sustain that after camp? So we are excited. We are glad you joined us, and we just want to say it's a huge gift to give your child to let them go to camp, and it's scary when it's your first year, and we've both been there. I'll just tell one quick story before we sign off, and then you can say something to close us out, Sarah.
Okay.
My oldest daughter, who's now 24, her first camp other than ours, because I knew she needed to go to another camp to have a real camp experience away from her parents. I dropped her off at the camp, and I was driving back to my camp, and I called my husband, and I said to him, I cannot believe people send their children to camp to us every year, because that was so hard dropping her off. So I just want to say, I know it is a huge leap of faith to trust other people with your kids. So, you want, though, to have that relationship with whatever camp that your children attend, where you do feel that you're partners with them, you trust them, you know their philosophy and their values, and it matches your family, so that you feel really good about it, even though you're nervous. So I just want to say, it is scary the first year. It does get easier. So I'm going to let Sarah close us off. What do you have to end us with, Sarah?
Well, I just want to encourage parents who are in that place of anxiousness as they are sending their kiddos off to camp. Even if it's a day camp experience, it's brand new, and you can't be a room parent at day camp, and that's tough. But I want to encourage you, because the gift that we give our kids to little by little stretch their independence muscles will serve them so well in years ahead. We're launching our second child off to college at the end of this coming summer. And yesterday I got a note from him, and he said, thank you for preparing me for this big move. And I got all choked up. Yeah, I did. But it's those little tiny moments, those little bits where he got to exercise his muscle, to advocate for himself, to make a new friend, to go to a new camp, to have an experience and realize that you have set him up well, Mom and Dad, and he's going to keep stepping forward. So I just want to affirm you, parents. Thank you for being attentive and awesome and brave and encouraging. And we are excited to partner with you. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining Sarah and me for this episode of the podcast. For links on how to contact either of us to ask more questions about camp, visit my website at sunshine-parenting.com and search for episode 37. I'll also include links to other resources if you're preparing to send your child to summer camp. I'm going to leave you with a quote from Michael Thompson, PhD. He wrote the book Homesick and Happy, which is a wonderful book that is a celebration of how wonderful it can be for kids to go to summer camp. In Michael's words, I wanted to remind everybody that for many of us, while we love our parents to pieces, the sweetest moments of our childhood were when we had independence from them.